everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Ask Hugo number 45.
This one's 45?
This one's 45.
Just like our president. I salute you, sir. You're doing a great job.
Anyway, today I'm here to answer more of your questions.
I don't know why you're laughing.
Yeah. Ask more in the comments. Let's go.
J. Daco, I don't know. Dear Jake and the Fat Man, that seems backwards. Will you give us any more stories from D&D or other role-playing games? These stories are fun and interesting. Perhaps even occasionally upload recordings of you playing it. Also, both of you should be playing since it is a good game and help keep your brain active. That last part, I think you need to play more. It's a good game, help keep your brain active.
Yeah, I think, for those of you who don't know, by the way, over on Unpopped, Jake and his girlfriend did a thing talking about
some of the minis and stuff we had for the campaign.
Yeah, that was before we had actually started. Now we've done 2 sessions of D&D. I'm enjoying it a lot. I think Jake's enjoying being the GM for us. Mm-hmm. I don't know what form videos would take with us talking about our gaming. Yeah. If anyone has any ideas or anything you would find interesting if we were just to film a game, I assume that's boring to 99% of people.
Well, we'd probably edit it, but I know a lot of people would not be comfortable with that, like 3 of them at least. Yeah, probably. Probably won't film game footage for a long time if that happens. But the only kind of idea I had was, since I'm the dungeon master, I'm, the universe basically right now, is in my head, and he's a player, and you're kind of the leader sometimes, like, you don't like...
I'd argue it's her, but...
Well... Okay, so between the 2 of you, one of you definitely leads combat, and one of you definitely leads roleplay. And I think you're more the roleplay leader.
Okay.
But I don't know. I could go in with what they're going to be doing and what I expect, and then we could talk about what actually happened after the fact.
That'd be interesting.
You know
I'd like some insight too, because after the things, after the sessions, I'll ask him, hey, if we had done this other thing, what would have happened?
And I don't always go like, oh, well, you should have blank.
Right.
I don't think I actually have told you should have. I'd tell you options that would have happened based on the characters that you're interacting with. And granted, right now, we're not in a very... you're getting a lot of the same people as far as culturally, because we're in one city right now. And but actually, your next thing that you're probably going to do is we're going on a travel. Okay. So it'll be your first actual foray into the wilderness surrounding stuff, which will be fun. So I don't know. We can talk about that, but I don't. As far as the pre-game stuff, I don't want to talk to you about that too much.
No,
because I feel like
that would ruin the game for me too. But if you want to do after reports or something like, hey, in the last session, here's what happened.
We play on Saturdays. It'd go up on Sundays or Mondays.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
So, something like that. If you guys have another idea, that's cool. I was also thinking about doing occasional one-shots. Yeah. Where we could, me, Hugo, we could take turns DMing, and then we have some people or something.
I don't know if I'd be a good DM.
Yeah, I know, but eventually you just kind of do it over time. But or I could just DM and we could do one-shots. It's fine. Sure. And have different guests on. That might be fun. And we put that up on Unpop. But I don't know. Good question. The douchebag. Dear Hugo and Jake, how would you go about a conversation with a fellow atheist who can't see nuance between the religious? I mean, when someone comes into a conversation and asks, how can you believe something so retarded? It comes off to me, as an atheist, that they haven't heard very many points of view. I don't find any arguments for the existence of God compelling, but I can at least have respectful disagreements with theists. How can you convince someone that just because someone else is religious, they aren't stupid by default? Great question.
It's a great question.
Something we've kind of been fighting since day 1 of the show.
Yeah, because I was that guy for a long time.
We both kind of have done that from time to time.
I go back and watch the beginnings of the show.
Oh yeah,
you can see me being kind of more of a dick about it. I think it's the kind of thing you almost have to let the dude figure out for himself that he's an asshole. You can call him out on it. You can say, listen, you can disagree with these people, but be respectful about it, and respect them as human beings, even if you don't respect what they believe. Respect them enough to be civil and not call them like a retard or whatever they're calling them.
Unless you're good friends, I don't see that really going over very well.
No, it's not productive in any way. You're not trying to have a conversation. That person is essentially positing, I'm a better person than you, I'm smarter, fuck you. That person has no interest in having a conversation. That person has an interest in stroking their own ego and thinking that they're a better person than others because of their position on theism versus atheism.
I also would bring up the point that a lot of people are atheists because Christianity's incorrect, not because religions are incorrect. You know what I'm saying? Which is, just because you got the right answer doesn't mean you're there for the right reasons. It's why math teachers say, show your work. Yeah. Basically, this is the physical, or the, I guess, day-to-day embodiment of show your work. Like, you know, not everything is wrong just because you come to this conclusion. Always make sure that you're right. Anyways, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It should be, I guess, atheism isn't necessarily a thing you practice, but it's definitely something that you should question, just like any other
position.
Yeah, I was going to say belief, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
And then it was going to turn into just a flame war. It's not a belief, Jake.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Cheape on a coffee break. I have to know the backstory to that. No?
I don't care enough about them.
I do. Cheape on a coffee break. Hugo and Jake, if YouTube was the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which movie/series would your channel be? My vote when we picked this question was Ant-Man, because we're funny, but we're low budget.
My vote is Inhumans, because not enough people, no one watches it, and it's going to ruin the future career prospects of everyone involved.
Yeah. Nailed it. Donnie Lurch. Dear Hugo and Jake, from what you have learned being knee-deep in copyright law, can you tell me what is the legality of using copyrighted music as ambiance in one's YouTube videos? This actually went on for quite a ways.
That was like this much, and then like 4 times as much after. I had the answer before you even gave me the rest. No, you cannot use copyrighted music as background music in your videos.
Ever.
Full stop. You can't. That's not fair use. Fair use is using something in a way that it would change it somehow. It changes what it is and its function. If you're taking ambient music and just using it in your video and it's copyrighted, you're just using it as its intended purpose illegally. You can't do that. Now, if you were a musician, on the other hand, and you took a sample from a music piece and remixed it and did stuff...
Did a cover?
That could fall under fair use.
Did a parody, like Weird Al? He's made a whole career on other people's work, but his also adding on to it.
Sure. Or if you were literally reviewing the background track, that'd be a weird YouTube channel. But if you were doing it, you could use sections of it and talk about it.
And so, one thing that they brought up was the music in the background of video games.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a gray area in fair use. Actually, that sometimes those get flagged. But I would argue that playing the game, because that's included... if you're actually adding commentary, it's not just you sitting there playing, which happens. If you're editing and you're playing and you're actually maybe reviewing the game, I think that's valid, because part of the review would be what's the audio like. But I do definitely recommend, if you do Let's Plays and you have an option to turn the music off, definitely try to do that.
Here's my thought, and I don't know if there's any case law on this. I should actually ask Michael. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Michael being our
at Geek Attorney on Twitter. Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any case law about this, because specifically for a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, tons of licensed just music in that game.
Yeah.
The music is licensed for that game, but that license doesn't explicitly say, okay, anytime anyone is broadcasting this game, that makes it okay for them to... But I don't know if it also expressly forbids it. I don't know if there is any case law. This is all new. Let's Plays and stuff, that it's just not something that has been considered until fairly recently.
That's why the video game thing is different. You can't, like, if we're just talking, we put, I don't know, what was that song that popped up earlier? Sweet Home Alabama accidentally popped up on Hugo's phone for some reason.
Yeah.
It's probably the ghost that lives in my house.
Probably,
yeah, that makes sense. And we couldn't just put, Sweet Home Alabama over this whole thing.
No, but good news for people who do want background music, there are tons of resources for free copyright.
Right
free
here on YouTube.
Right on YouTube.
Go to your creator. If you are a person that does content or you would like to, you have a creator page if you have a name, most likely. I don't know if they changed that. It used to be always the same. You go over there, go to the left when you get to the actual dashboard, and on the bottom left there's a create tab, and there's some audio stuff, but then there's definitely music, and all of it has, it's all free to use, and sometimes you have to put the information in the bio if you're going to use it for, the reasons for the, like Kevin MacLeod is a very popular one that you see a lot, and you've heard it a lot. Anytime I think we used the same music IHE uses for his intro, but he uses the free music in the YouTube creator thing. So
he just happens to be the famous person who does that. Famous YouTube popular.
Yeah, but so there's plenty of options. You don't have to use copyrighted, and you can also make your own music if you are that talented. I'm not.
Neither am I.
Off of the last Ask Hugo, Emily Olm. Hey, Hugo and Jake. Have either of you seen Jesus Christ Superstar, and would you ever consider reviewing it? I recognize there are different ways it's interpreted as far as whether or not it's meant to be taken seriously or not, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, especially the film from 2000. If it's supposed to be taken seriously or not, isn't it a comedy?
It's an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. He also did Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Right.
I wouldn't say comedy as much as just it's campy. His musicals tend to be
that's fair, because I think Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat is pro Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yeah. Same thing with Jesus Christ Superstar. It's telling the story. There is comedy in it, but it's not farcical. It's not saying like ah ha 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 ha.
Yeah, it's not Life of Brian.
Right. I enjoy Jesus Christ Superstar, the 2000 version, more so than the 70s version, though many people would disagree with me. I like it fine. It's an okay musical. I like the titular song. I think it's very interesting when Judas goes up to Jesus and he's like, the song Jesus Christ Superstar is literally Judas talking to Jesus as he's being, put on the cross or whatever. He's like, why would you come to Middle East, middle of nowhere, with no communication? Like, if you wanted to spread your message, you would come to modern day,
That's Judas asking?
Judas is sort of
Judas is definitely dead by that point, so is he like a...
Throughout the story, he comes in and he says to Jesus, hey, Jesus, the messages you are extolling are really great.
Right.
But... people are starting to kind of take your teachings and really, really put them together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I think in the musical, if I remember correctly, Judas betrays Jesus because he starts to think it's causing more harm than good.
That's almost...
so it offers a sort of a different perspective.
It's almost like that Willem Dafoe Jesus movie where...
Last Temptation.
It's a big misunderstanding.
Yeah, the Scorsese one or whatever.
Yeah.
Was that Scorsese?
I think so.
Anyway, I enjoy it. It's a campy musical, though, and I don't watch it often. I watch Joseph. For instance, I own Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with Donny Osmond on Blu-ray.
Donny!
You know what? Do I own Jesus Christ Superstar? I might.
You may. I've definitely seen Joseph, though. Yeah.
So. That's my thoughts. It's okay. I'm not a huge Andrew Lloyd Webber guy.
Yeah. And by the way, as far as a review of it, it goes back to the last question. The music in that would be very hard to put on YouTube.
Yeah.
So. Also from the last Ask Hugo, Claudia de Araujo. When did you start questioning Christianity? For Hugo, since you used to be Christian, what are some of the biggest contradictions or fallacies that you first noticed that led you to be an atheist today? And Jake, what were yours? I assume you mean from my just like neutral position of non-religion to my profession of atheism, which is where I will go with that.
I didn't become an atheist until high school, but the seeds of it started in 5th grade, and I'll tell you what happened, because I went to a Baptist elementary school up until 5th grade, at which point I was transferred to public school because I said I would prefer it. I thought it was, for one thing, I think the school I was going to, the private one, was really expensive, and it was kind of weird. I'm pretty sure the preacher there got a 14-year-old girl pregnant, and he was in his 50s, so yeah. Anyway, and he didn't get fired or anything. She just moved away. Anyway.
That's how that works.
Yeah, unfortunately. So I transferred to public school. I had poor social skills. I still do. But at some point, I don't even remember specifically, but something got brought up about evolution, and obviously I had been drilled in my head since youth because of this Christian school. That says we came from monkeys, and they gave talking points. So the minute someone else brought it up, and it was another student in my grade, I was like, what, do you think we came from monkeys? And he's like, that's not what evolution says. And I went, what?
And in 5th grade.
Yep.
Nice.
And respect the hell out of that guy for doing that. It was the first time, I guess, I had ever actually tried.
Do you remember that person's name?
Blake.
Nice.
I'm not going to share his last name.
It was Blake Lively. It was before the transition.
But it was the first time I'd ever been outside of that bubble of these talking points are the talking points we all repeat. And it's the first time anyone I had blurted out a thing I had been taught to repeat, and someone said, no, that's not right.
Right.
It took me aback. I was confused. And from that point on, I started to think more about the stuff, and I compared it to what I was being taught at the public school, science-wise especially. I ended up really liking science, actually. It was probably one of my favorite classes.
Yeah. Because all it was brand new.
Yeah. And by the time I got to high school, I guess, I would consider myself agnostic. I'm still an agnostic atheist, but, at that point...
Practicing atheist is typically how I like to say it, because you act as if you're correct.
Yeah. And then in high school, I finally just thought about it more, and I read some books on the topics, and that's the first time I'd read some books on atheism and what the worldview is like when you're not religious or whatever, and I was like, yeah, you know what, I think I agree with this. This is what I think is true, and that's how it happened. Just happened over time.
That's usually how most... If you have like a flashbulb moment and you're just like, oh, now I'm an atheist, that's probably not right. We knew a guy... back in the day, and I can't remember, it was the Higgs boson. When that got proved, he was like, I'm an atheist now. I was like,
what? Yeah, that
was
weird.
Because we proved the particle that gives mass to electron, or mass to atomic matter. It's like, that doesn't mean
I think he was looking for an excuse.
Yeah, I think so too. But as far as, I guess, what'd you say the exact was contradictions or fallacies.
Noah's Ark was a big one for me. I started looking more into Noah's Ark and the logistics of that and going, this doesn't make sense. And Adam and Eve, that doesn't make sense literally. And if it isn't literally true, we don't have original sin. If we don't have original sin, Jesus doesn't have to die on the cross.
Yeah. I guess my biggest contradiction or fallacy, it's got to be kind of the problem of evil in general, I guess, was like the thought process of going through those thought exercises is what kind of moved me from like, I'll take a middle position because I don't really think about it, to, wow, that is fucked up. And I remember a conversation in high school at lunch. I remember the exact table and everything because it was the table we all sat at. And I can't remember what was said, but I was like, yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. And they were talking about some sort of, it was a Jesus-related thing, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was, because we were coming up on Easter, and I didn't understand what the holiday was about, really. I knew that it was like Jesus-related, and it had to do with resurrection, but I didn't know that like people like literally believed that shit. I thought it was just like a thing we did for fun, but it had to do with the resurrection, and God, I can't. Oh, there was a Catholic and there was a Lutheran, and they were arguing. That's what it was. Because Catholics, they take more of a position of straight apostolic succession. Is that what it's the word? Anyways, a straight line that from Jesus' existence to now, there's an unbroken chain of apostles and priests and stuff like that. And the Lutheran was like, no, Martin Luther, and I was just like, none of you make sense. That was a good time. I didn't get any shit for that either. It was weird. Anyway, Tom Ramirez, Hugo, for what would you kill Jake? Jake, for what would you kill Hugo? This is the last question because I assume this will end in one of our murders. Like the bare minimum? I don't know.
$500,000.
That's decent. You could invest some of that.
Yeah.
Are we talking money or like what?
After taxes, $500,000.
Oh, okay. There we go. No, I mean like what grievance I could have with you to cause me to murder you. Literally the simplest disagreement.
I don't think there is one because we're intrinsically tied to one another financially. We couldn't murder each other unless the incentive was greater than the incentive to keep this show going.
What if it was a suicide pact? Like a cooperative suicide pact. That's actually what's going to happen. We're going to get a boat and we're just going to harpoon gun each other on the boat and then drift into the sea, that big trash pile in the Pacific. And that's where we will stay.
We're going to tie the harpoons together with rope in the middle, so as we into the depths forever, our bodies are connected.
Yeah.
Until we skeletify, and then no.
In the
I'm pretty sure skeletify is a new word, by the way. TM on that. Skeletify.
I just like the idea of our corpses floating in an endless trash pile, because that's where we belong.
Well, is that it? Okay, that's good for this episode. So, ask more questions down in the comments. You can always, like Jake mentioned, there's a Discord link down there. You can check out that in the community there. You can also ask us questions there. We always check that for the Ask Hugos and Jake reads. There's a whole board just for that.
Yep. So next week, we got, what do we got here? We're doing a live unboxing on Wednesday of all the things. We actually have a big pile of shit over here. If I move, can you see it?
Yeah, P.O. Box stuff.
P.O. Box stuff. And then we actually are resurrecting TQR because you will be done moving and have internet. And so we now can share the load of editing more properly because before it was him doing everything. And then for a little bit it's going to have to be me for doing a lot of things. But not as long because you had a place to stay with internet for a second. So that's great. But yeah, so it's been a little fucked up. Then we're doing on Friday a full Ray Comfort takedown video. That's going to be good. And then the Patreon live show is Saturday.
Lots of stuff.
So that's all next week.
Yeah. So, stay tuned for that. Until next time, I'm Hugo.
Yeah, that was real sultry of you.
I'm Jake. This has been Ask Hugo number 45.
Not as sultry. You can't get in my pants. You could probably get in my pants. My zipper's down. Just kidding. I'm not wearing a zipper or pants.
It's a good thing he's fat, or I could totally see his dick.
Dude, it's at half staff right now. I can't poke through yet. 3/4. There it is. Yeah.
Confirmed.